Okay, time has passed 12, so I think we'll get started. Thanks for joining this webinar on dynamic links. My name is Oscar Lander. I work in customer success here in the Swedish team. And alongside me today, I have Tobias Rosenfeldt, who works in global pre-sales. Goal of today, we're going to be talking about dynamic links and how they can be used. In my role as customer success manager, I work very closely with a lot of customers, and dynamic links is really one of the powerful tools that's quite easy to set up. So what is a dynamic link? In short, really, there are two ways to distribute a quest in Questback. The most commonly used is email, and then you also have an option to distribute by link. And distributing by link with a dynamic link is effectively an enhanced version of that. So you can have URL parameters in the link and actually pull data through it. It's in the name, a dynamic link really lets you have a varied level of respondent data. So the link will actually be aware of the answers or the data that's in there, and it can bring that into the system. And just that last point there in the slide, it can be very powerful when you start putting these links in third-party systems or other options like that, which Tobias will go through in a bit more detail shortly. A few typical use cases. One, a bilingual survey. Let's say that we want to automate the distribution of the survey so that based on the location you're in, you get the survey in the right language to begin with. We can do that with a dynamic link. Another one, perhaps touchpoint tracking. In this example, we've got 20 stores located throughout the country or Europe, could be anywhere. And we want to know where these respondents to the survey, which store they were in, so that we can evaluate that data. So we can automate that through a dynamic link as well. External sendouts from a CRM. Let's say we automatically want to trigger something from a CRM when there's an event in a CRM, for example, an opportunity closed or a support place closed, something like that. We can have that data automatically flow through to Essentials. And we can also have some enhanced URLs in the background to trigger invitations to a survey, which Tobias, like I said, will go through in a bit more detail. Quick fire introduction there. Over to you, Tobias.
Very good. Thank you, Oscar, and welcome from my side. I'm managing the voice here and also the screen sharing. So let me just see whether we can get that done. So perfectly. This is Essentials, as you all know, and I'll show you a couple of examples here. And really, to stress again what Oscar said initially is we have, when we work with a survey, as you all know, there are two ways to distribute it under distribution. There is a way either that you upload invitees, email addresses, and then the system generates email invitations, or you have simply a generic link that you can place anywhere. And what dynamic link does here is that it allows you to operate with several links here, not just one, and place them in different locations or use them for different purposes. And whenever somebody clicks on the link, the system knows that this link is clicked and locks that and pulls any data that is related to that link through for analysis, reporting, design, etc. So it's really an enhancement here to distribute by link and allows you to create more than one version of it. The first example that we briefly touched is the Bilingual Survey. Obviously, you know that when you set up a survey, you can have additional languages added here, and you can also then define whether the respondent is to choose the language or not. And typically, there's an option where you say, no, open a quest in the language of the invitation, and this is obviously the scenario when an invitee, an email address, is related to a specific survey language. Then the invitation, the language of the invitation defines the language of the survey that follows. With dynamic link now, we can also reuse that functionality for the distribute by link. So what we would do then is we would simply, in distribute by link here, we would go to the section Get Dynamic Link here. And the important thing here about the Get Dynamic Link is really it's a builder wizard, while the actual dynamic links that are built are not saved in the system. It just allows you to build it and then to preview it and then to take it from there. So let's say we would like to have a link here in German, and then we see here the preview, we see at the end here there is a language tag added. So that would then be, for this particular case, the link to be used, to be placed so that German-speaking individuals could access the link, and then it would get exactly to the German version of the survey. If you switch back to English here, we see that the English language tag here is added. So that version of the link leads to the English version of the survey. When answered, then also under follow-up and in reports here, it will become available and visible, if we select here the survey language, which language they have chosen and to which survey language a response is related. So instead of having, and now I'm just dragging in a little notepad here just to show you the links again in this first example, just to highlight that again in details and a bit possibly technically, but just that you see the difference. The general distribute by URL would simply be like this. This would be the link that you initially use, distribute by link, and place it on a website, in a newsletter, by a QR code, in a pop-up, etc. However, if you would like that there is two versions to this link, one for the English version and one for the German version, the dynamic link builder allows you to build these links, and then you have two versions of the same distribute by link that you can use and distribute accordingly. So instead of one, you get two, one for each language. So that's that first example here, where and I know for a fact that many customers have required that they would like to have one survey, several languages, and have generic links that point directly to a specific language page. So that's one example. And as you see here, this is not super dynamic in any way. It's simply a way of setting up to survey, but it's the same functionality. There's no dynamic feed to the URL. It's simply a language code. A second example that Oscar mentioned is then that touchpoint tracking. And the touchpoint can really be any touchpoint in a web survey, for example. If you would like to embed an evaluation form directly on a website and say, have you found what you were looking for? What do you think about our new website? Then you can embed it on the landing page, on the pricing page, on the contact me page, on the support page. And obviously you would like to know from which source, from which place the answer comes. Or the example that Oscar mentioned, you have a screen somewhere in a store and people in store provide feedback, and you would obviously like to know which store they use. The example that I've built now relates to that and is a bit of an in-office feedback form where individuals or employees will be asked in a very short survey, how was your day at work today? Was it better than yesterday, or was it worse than yesterday? And what was your highlight? Could you help a colleague, or did you learn something new, or didn't you have any highlight? So in store, in office feedback scenario, the functionality, the concept is the same. You have the same survey displayed at multiple locations, and you would like to know when people answer from where the response comes from. The way to set that up is that you would, under distribution here, initially add first a so-called respondent data field, an extra data field where these different locations in that example are defined. So I've added here a location field, and I've already pre-added actually 6 different offices here, the 6 different offices of Questback. So if we as Questback would want that in-office feedback where employees say, my day was good today and this was my highlight, and we have 6 touchscreens and we would like to know from where the responses come, we would add 6 locations here. In the store example, we would add the store locations here. In the example yes. So this is in the example of the website. Of course, you would add the different subsites here. As a next step, you would then go again to distribution, and you would again distribute by link, get dynamic link builder, and here you would then say, for this particular dynamic link, I would like to have it enhanced by a location. So you see down here in the preview, the link gets extended by the tag, the parameter add location equal dummy text here. And what you would need to do then is, and I'll show you again this example, so that we're getting the overview here. You would then sort of hard code 6 versions or 20 versions of the same link, where instead of the dummy text here at the end, you would fill in the respective location. And then if I answer, and that link then here would be embedded in the in-office touchscreen in Espoo in Finland. And then if answered via that link, the system would know the data comes from here, and Espoo had a fantastic day because they could help a customer. And then I send it in. And if somebody says, I'm actually answer via the link here in Berlin, for example, the employees in Berlin, they would answer via that link that is embedded there. You see again, the location is part of the URL. They would answer here and say, okay, the day was not so good because there was no highlight at all. And from a reporting point of view, everything works as normal. And as before with dynamic link, there's nothing special to the reporting, but any information that you include in the link, such as the location here, is obviously pulled through and available for reporting. So you see under follow-up, for example, you see the respective responses and to which location, to which office they are related to. That's sort of on the individual response level, you see that. And when you set up a report, for example, you see as well that, okay, in Espoo, people have a great day because they're very much on the positive side, while Amsterdam, Berlin here, things are rather on the negative side so far. And here are the highlights that are triggered today. And we see we have most feedback here from Espoo and none from London, for example. So the location will just become an integral part of the reporting, and you'll be able to set up some comparison or crosstabs based on it, as in this case here. Or you can also go back into the reporting and create any filter based on the location that you capture via this link here. In the respondent data field, we have the field location. If you have then 6 filters, and then, for example, under follow-up, you can use one of these filters, the data that has been embedded, and you see there's no response from London. So any data that you capture via dynamic links is treated as any respondent data that you pre-upload and becomes available in one way or another for your reporting and analysis capabilities here. So far, still not very dynamic because it's simply various versions of a distribute by link URL with one extra parameter. Either that could be a language version, as in the first example, or a hard-coded touchpoint. But yet very powerful, because it allows you sort of to place the links at different locations and or in different scenarios and get feedback and get that information together for the embedded analysis. The next example, and that's what Oscar is really excited about, because that's what he's working often with together with customers, is that when the embedding of a URL, of a survey URL, either in an external system or in a newsletter, where data can be fed dynamically into it. Let's see whether we can get an example, but maybe first, before we look at the example, quick look at one slide here that we actually used from the integration documentation that is directly available in the resource center, in Essentials, and also in the Questback Academy. Let's assume there is a Questback Academy, an e-learning system, has nothing to do with Essentials, but it's an e-learning system where individuals have their personal login and where they can take online modules directly in that e-learning system. So Oscar here, as our example person, he has his login there, logs into that e-learning system, so the system knows it's Oscar that is working in the system. The system also knows that Oscar now takes a course in advanced reporting, directly an e-learning module there, and clicks through, and at the end of that module, that e-learning system would like that Oscar provides some feedback. How was the module? Did you learn something about it? How is it? And in this particular example, then what we can help customers with is that the link here that they embed directly in that e-learning system would be a dynamic link and would not just lead Oscar to a survey, a quest where he could provide feedback, but actually would include his name and the course that he's just taken. That is data that is known in that system, and that can be passed on. So when Oscar then clicks on the link, the system, in Essentials, the survey, will greet him by name and say, "Dear Oscar, thank you for providing feedback to our module, Advanced Reporting." So data from this system via the link can be passed on dynamically through a dynamic feed into Essentials for personal feedback here in Essentials. So this is what we mean by embedded feedback. Include a link to a survey in Essentials in a third-party software, whether that is a newsletter system or a CRM system with a Sendout or an e-learning system or a booking system. Doesn't really make any difference. The scenario is always the same. People work somewhere within a system that knows who they are, and then they include additional, and then they get a link to feedback and can click on it, and data are being included there. So how would that work then in Essentials? Here we have, again, you'll start to recognize it's a short survey, and under distribution here, we do the same as we do in the example with Touchpoint. We define the fields that should include and capture information that is being passed on through a URL. Here we have 3 fields. We don't just have the touchpoint as in the other example. We have fields. We have a field for the name, we have a field for course, and we have a field for location. These fields need to be predefined here because these are the fields that are to receive data from a third-party system. In the second step, we would then again say, start to build a dynamic link. We say still answer, but we would now start to include all 3 fields here and we see the preview gets longer and longer. And I'll try to find the example that I had before, just to highlight that again. You would then get the generic dynamic link here with 3 dummy fields, or 3 fields where data could be dynamically fed into. Here for the name, because it's related to the name, here for the course, and here for the location. That link can be much, much longer if you have additional fields. Assuming the example before, this Oscar works in the e-learning system, and the e-learning system knows it's Oscar is working there, and he's taking the course Design 123, and he's in Stockholm. The system would then feed in here directly Oscar, Design 123, and Stockholm into the link. So when Oscar clicks on the link, these data are being pulled over. Or, different scenario, I'm logged into the system knows I'm Tobias, the system knows I'm taking the course 123 for reporting, and I'm in the location in Oslo. So if I would then click on that link here, then the system would recognize it. And what you could do actually is you can reuse also the data from the link directly in the survey to make it personal. So you greet, dear Tobias, thank you for completing our course Reporting 123 offered by our office in Oslo. And then I can say the course information was excellent, the course order was good, the content was good, but it was way too expensive. Good course, but way too expensive. So the system then knows this feedback here is being combined, is related to the information captured. So this feedback is from Tobias. It's about this course and offered by Oslo. So if I click here on send, then I see under follow-up again, I see that related response here where I say Tobias has taken this course, is Oslo, and has given this feedback here about that course. So the scenario is the same. You prepare the survey here, you prepare it with the respective links, you use the distribution here in the dynamic link wizard where you build it, and once that link with the respective field is ready, you take it from there, this link here, you embed it somewhere where it needs to be, and instead of the dummy text here, you use the API fields or the tags of the system in question to feed in the respective correct content for that particular person. And it's always the same scenario. You do that in a system that knows who clicks on the link and therefore has data that can be passed on. With time progressing and only 5 minutes left, one short example at the end where we actually combine the elements of distributing via email together with dynamic links, with that distribute by link. And you might have already noticed when looking at the webinar here that when you build a dynamic link, you actually have 2 options here, answer and invite. With no comments to it, we've always used answer in our example so far. And answer means whoever clicks on the link, on that dynamic link, is directly redirected to the survey, to the quest, where he or she can provide feedback. Answer means you click on it, you're directly redirected to where you can provide feedback. Answer also means that there is a part of the URL here of the dynamic link is coded as answer. Invite here means the following. If you click on invite, what happens is that whoever clicks on the link will then receive an email invitation with additional data. And you see here already in the preview, the link then reads invite at and has an extra field here where email addresses could be part of a dynamic feed together with the name, the course, or the location. Let's look at the link again. This is the generic dynamic link with the tag here, invite, not answer, but invite. The extra field here for email address, and the name for dummy text, course, location, and dummy. If then the system could pass on not just the name, the course, and the location, but also the email address of the respective person, and uses the tag invite, what happens is that when that person is clicking on that link, the system says, I recognize this is valid information, and an actual email invitation is now sent to Oscar for him to provide feedback. This is basically an HTML confirmation here, and typically used in scenarios where that part is made hidden by the respective system admins. So it's not meant, in that scenario, it's not meant for individuals to click on the link and to then see that sort of technical information from it. But there are means of just having that executed in the background. That's what we also mentioned in the presentation first. So that, but when clicked, when a link is executed, then the effect is that an email invitation is being sent to Oscar, and then he can create click on the link and provide feedback. An example of such an email invitation could then, for example, look like this. That also here, the system picks up, is for Tobias, it's about this course, it's provided by this office. And if I then click on the link here, I can start to provide feedback to that. And what happens here is that when a dynamic link with the trigger invite is being added, then we'll see here that the invitees are also added to the invitee list. You'll get the status not responded because Oscar hasn't responded his invitation yet. And that way you could then also possibly reuse the capability to send automated reminders, for example, or quarantine periods. So that way, what we do we start by distribute by link, we set up a dynamic link, but when you click on the link, what happens is that an invitee is automatically added, and then an invitation is triggered that way. And again, from a reporting point of view, you will see the same here, that the responses are added, include both the feedback provided and the data from the link, and are available for further analysis there. The half an hour is up, and I hope that we could show at least today that dynamic link doesn't need to be complicated. It can be as simple as two versions of a URL with either different touch points related to it or different language versions. Or it can also be a bit more sophisticated if you indeed would like to embed a link in a third-party software that knows data about the person that clicks on the link and that is able to pass that data on dynamically through a dynamic feed into the respective parameters predefined in the dynamic link. Oscar, anything that I missed?
No, good job, Tobias, definitely. We did have one question in the chat, which was in relation to allowing multiple responses.
Yes.
and how that setting should be used in conjunction with dynamic link?
Yeah. That is a very good question. Initially, the allowing multiple response here in the settings is always related to an email address of a respondent. So if you allow multiple responses per respondent, in order for it to work properly, you need to track and capture an email address and assign it to the system field email address. With all the examples that we've provided, at least initially with the bilingual quest and the touch points, we didn't really include any email addresses to the system field email. Therefore, the allow multiple response per respondent doesn't work there because there's no email address of the respondent in the system field email address. However, in the last example with the trigger invite, we do indeed have an email address there. And there you can, even as part of the dynamic link, say that person should be invited once, or that person should be allowed to respond once. So allow multiple response here is possible to use as long as we capture an email address of the respondent through the dynamic link and assign it to the system field email address, because that's what is required for that option here to work properly.
Great. Just before we close up, it's worth adding that dynamic link access may not be there in your version of Essentials if it's not switched on. So if you'd like access to that, you can reach out to your customer success representative or myself or Tobias, and we'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction.
Very good. And a final remark from my end. When I showed it at one slide with the embedded feedback, I said it's part of the documentation about integration and dynamic links that is available in Essentials. It is here under Help in the Resource Center, where you have a lot of technical documentation, including an overview of the integration options. And that's where it's one of the slides. And then also here we have a technical documentation about dynamic link that explains everything in much more details. And that also then includes further technical explanation about how such invite links can be executed in the background without necessarily the HTML confirmation being visible there. So have a look at it here if that's of interest for you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming, everyone, and have a nice rest of the day.